young. You said that when you... Michelle Pfeiffer, one of those actors you can't remember the first time you saw them. Well, do you remember the first time you saw her sing?
Down where the roses bloom, picture that same sweet.
And do you remember her Intensity and Dangerous Liaisons? And how about Catwoman, who was just Catwoman? George Clooney once said of her, she is so beautiful you might forget how very talented she is. But there is a new movie called Cherie, in which she plays a courtesan at the turn of the century. Even though she's a professional at romance, she proves you cannot always choose where love is going to fell you, and Michelle Pfeiffer is here. Even if he's very young, you can't decide.
Especially if he's very young.
Especially if he's very young. You said that when you're doing these scenes with a boy who's 24 years younger than you are, you have to have a sense of humor.
Well, when you're doing these scenes with anyone, really, because they're always a bit awkward in the beginning, I think you have to have a sense of humor. And fortunately, nearly all of my leading men have, and Rupert was no different. And he's, it's just sort of what, in the beginning you just make a pact on which of your bits you need the other one to cover. And once you get that established, then it's smooth sailing from there.
I was going to say, that's a lot of trust.
Yeah.
I mean, depending what kind of bits you have.
It's like, okay, you cover I'll cover yours.
Yes, you said that.
It kind of goes like that.
You consider yourself one of the biggest prudes in the business.
I am. I'm slightly less prudish than I used to be. Which is a shame that at a time when things are starting to go, that I become less prudish.
and now I'm ready to be bold. We have a clip from the movie, and you've met him, and it's as if you still sort of think you're in control. Maybe
at this point,
but starting to...
at this point, things are really just beginning. At this point, I think it's just kind of a little romp in the countryside, and I've sort of taken him off of his mother's hands for a bit because he's just become way too much work.
Here's the clip.
I can't criticize his character, mainly because he doesn't seem to have one. All the other young men I've had to do with can't wait to tell you all their innermost secrets. He never says a word. There's something about him, something mysterious. I can't explain. We were just talking about you.
If I were a woman, Monsieur Cherie, I think I'd say I'll come back in 10 years' time.
Wouldn't do you much good, would it?
And again, we forget how powerful these women were because we read about them in all of the novels, but they had enormous amounts of money, they had enormous amount of strategies.
Well, during a time when women didn't really have any power over their lives, they really were chattel, and they didn't own their own real estate, they didn't have their own bank accounts, they didn't really have much choice in who they married. And, these women were really the first suffragettes, and at a price, as, people usually do pay when they go against the grain of what's socially acceptable. They were no different. So, they were incredibly independent, and I think the word courtesan, I think we hear it all the time, but I don't know that, I certainly never really knew what that meant.
Yes, and I love the stand that you've taken. I love your one-woman stand against the word cougar these days. But men are sugar daddies if they're the women are cougars.
I know.
What is this? Look at the difference.
I know. Well, it's interesting that, it's sort of, I don't know, it's sort of, compounding what is already a sort of double standard, I don't know, it's kind of complicated, but I mean, it's sort of this connotation that our talons come out and these poor, innocent young victims not having any choice in the matter. But I'm not the only one that hates that word.
No. Okay, so the grassroots movement begins here in the studio this morning. Well, yet it's called Cherie, and it has such beautiful writing in it, one of which is, I loved you as if we were going to die the same day. Forgive me. Forgive me.
Yeah.